Here we have a situation in a live tree where we have a couple of large dead limbs up in about 55 feet up in the tree. Now, I would like to remove these limbs from the tree, but I can't lower them directly down below me because I've got lots of live limbs that I wouldn't want to damage. So we're going to be employing a rather complex rigging scenario here. For starters, we've set a rigging point up above here, and I'm tied out in the back stem of the tree. Notice how we've redirected the fall line of the rigging line so that the fall line is out of my way. We have a clear line down to our friction point at the base of the tree, but it'd be out of my way while I'm making my cut and once the limb has been cut free. Now, we've also set up another rigging point in an adjacent tree because underneath that tree we've got a nice open landing area. Here we're going to be again employing the drift line concept. Some people call it a transfer line. We're going to actually primarily, after I cut the limb, it'll primarily load into this rigging point, and then as we start lowering it down, we'll take up the slack and transfer the load over into the other rigging point in the adjacent tree so that we can move it down into the open landing area. Now, a couple other factors we've got going for us here. This is a rather big and spread out limb. So we're employing a different type of a balancer. I've tied the end of the lowering line here off towards the tip of this limb, and notice here I've added a spliced eye rigging sling onto the lowering line and tied it back near the butt. Now, because I've also got some other limbs fanning out in this direction, I'd actually like to have multiple attachment points. So I brought along another of these spliced eye rigging slings. Now I've got a 9/16 lowering line, and we are employing a 1/2-inch 10x spliced eye rigging sling. Notice how large the spliced eye is in the sling. I'm going to now attach this using a prusik, a 3-wrap 6-coil prusik onto the lowering line. This way I can create multiple attachment points. Now, I'm going to come out here and tie this off out at this limb. Again, I'm using a clove hitch here, backed up with 1/2 hitches, at least 2 1/2 hitches. Okay, now that I've attached that on, now I can adjust this and we can take up some tension. Let's see, want to make sure that my prusik is tied, dressed, and set so that it won't slide on the lowering line. All right, Bruce, could you take up a little bit of tension for me, please? That looks pretty good, and see here how we have the spider effect. And we could actually use more of these prusiks, these spliced eye rigging slings, if necessary. Now, the concept here, of course, is to balance this limb. I do have another factor that has come into play, is that my rigging point is at such a spot in the tree that hanging plumb, this limb will want to swing back into me, in towards the tree, after I make the cut. So we've employed a tag line here, this orange line, a tag line back to another anchor point, a tree back here where we've used a porter wrap with fiddle blocks so we can take up tension. That way, when I make the cut, that tag line will help keep the limb from swinging back into the tree. And then once the limb has been cut free and we're transferring it over to the other lowering line, we can actually use that tag line to help us direct the limb into the open landing zone.